my name is Rachel. If we've never met before, I like to talk about holistic health, alternative therapies, overcoming trauma, overcoming suffering to become your happiest and highest self, spirituality, intimacy, many things to basically become your best and happiest, highest self. And today I want to talk about my experience with having a leaky gut and how I overcame that. So before we get into it, if you want to hear more about the things I mentioned before, make sure you hit subscribe. If this video helps, give it a like, comment what you'd like to see next. And not a disclaimer, but I do always mention that I only talk about from my personal experience, so I can't talk about anybody else's experience. I just share what has happened to me in my life, and I know I have a lot of information and wisdom and knowledge to share with other people. So take what you want, leave the rest. If you do want more one-on-one support with healing and overcoming the things I mentioned, I do readings for people. So those would be customized, basically like spiritual coaching, understanding what your soul is experiencing kind of at a higher level. When we look to human stuff, we can get into the ego and fear and like to play victim sometimes, but readings are going to be more about your soul, your heart and soul. If you want longer term coaching with weight loss or intimacy or becoming happier and healthier, we can do that. And then I also offer energy work, which can overcome like any emotional challenges, physical challenges, lots of things. Energy healing is unlimited. It can basically help people overcome anything. So super powerful. So let's get into my background and story. Again, that's what I like to share to give people context as well. So when I was growing up, I ate the standard American diet. So that was a lot of sugar. I was definitely a picky eater. I didn't really like vegetables. I kind of liked bland American stuff. Like my mom would make my lunch every day when I was younger, like kindergarten, first grade at least, and I would want a ham sandwich. And when I say ham sandwich, it was white bread and the Carl Buddig ham, and then probably a bag of chips and a dessert. Like not super macro heavy, and a lot of sugary, not nutritionally dense food. So I kind of ate, not trash, but like as I got older, I remember my mom loved to cook. So dinners, I would have like vegetables. I ate pretty healthy in that regard. But I definitely craved a lot of dessert. I don't know what else I ate. Breakfast was probably like Pop-Tarts, like Eggo waffles. I always liked fruit, although I didn't like pineapple, mango. I probably liked bananas. I didn't like blueberries, so I don't know what I ate, but not super healthy and clean, I suppose. When it comes to just digestion in general, I had a stomach ache like all the time growing up. Looking back, I know that it was the emotional side of things. Like there was just so much emotion and oh, there's a ladybug on me, sorry. Oh, there are spiders down here too, so I'm a little freaked out by that, but trying to remember that a couple spiders are about 8 and manifesting energy and infinity. But where was I? Oh, my stomach aches were kind of about my emotions. So I had a lot of stomach aches, but I didn't go hungry. And then what really started to change everything was when I was 16, my parents separated and then eventually divorced. And again, growing up, I was sick like once a school year where I wouldn't go to school, but I had a lot of stomach issues. I probably had anxiety, like low grade all the time. But when I was 16, that started, that was the huge, most intense stressor in my life that I was consciously aware of. So I somehow made it through high school. But when I was 18, I was like, I don't want to be here. I want to go to school, not here. And freshman and sophomore year, I was in Chicago for school because I wanted to get away from home. However, like I said, 20, so like the winter of being 20, yeah, I started to experience depression at a level that I never had before. When I did go off to college, I had insomnia, which I never had before. I had seasonal allergies, which I never experienced before. So again, now that I know what I do now with all the health and healing work that I've done, I understand when a body has a physical symptom, it's telling you, hey, like this is something to take note of. Like this is what's going on. For stomach issues and digestion, it's about digesting life. I'm going to do a whole video on allergies. I'm going to do a whole video on the thyroid. Insomnia, like I said, I never experienced that before, so I know it's just like this new level of stress, and my body was like, you can't even sleep. But yeah, so I moved home for junior and senior year of college because I was like, well, I've never experienced this level of what I'm experiencing before, and it was stressful, and I wanted to be home. And again, the end of my college experience is a whole story in itself, but I made it through college, and I had mono senior year, so I was just like super not healthy, you know, like I had some of those things growing up that were, I would say, acute. I've had other acute things that I haven't mentioned, like a sty. I had a point where I played volleyball and my knee pads would rub on my knees, and like that whole season they were rashy and irritated because of something that was going on the volleyball team. But to start having what I would say more chronic health symptoms as I made it through college and really starting to notice that, I was like, okay, well, I have the rest of my life. Like, I need to understand how to be healthy. And, you know, what is my body really saying to me? Because at this point, when I was 13, I started to see homeopath, and I saw that homeopath from 13 to 20 or 21. And then when I moved back here, I found a different homeopath just to help me get through senior year. So I was starting to learn about like holistic health and alternative therapies, but this is part of my story where it started to go deeper and into more that I've learned about, and that's why I'm sharing that with people. But I graduated, and then I got to go to Metro East Chiropractic and Nutrition here in Oakdale, Minnesota, and they did nutrition response testing. So this was a point where I finally started to go to a chiropractor, and he could tell me what my body was stressed about and how to support my body through that physically. And so I would go for muscle testing or nutrition response testing, and then I also got, I think, 6 coaching sessions at the beginning of becoming a patient there, and one of them was leaky gut, and I had started to learn about it on my own as well. Senior year of college is when I started to get into like, ooh, there's a bunch of toxins and chemicals in my shampoo and conditioner and toiletries that I use that are adding to my toxic load that are making me sicker, so I'm gonna start to stay away from those. I started to date someone who was eating at co-ops because that was a part of his journey up until that point. So that's when I started to get into nutrition. Senior year, I took a class in my holistic health major that was a part of like nutrition therapy, basically. So I was like, oh my gosh, people are actually eating foods to heal their body, right? So I was starting to get into this stuff. And like I said, there was a health coaching session on leaky gut. And at this point, I had already started to learn about it. But overall, just like every single organ in your body, it's all made up of cells. So in the gut lining, it's made up of a single thin layer of cells. And sometimes those cells, if there's too much toxic stress, meaning chemicals and toxins in the body, emotional stress, in addition to a physical stressor, those cells can start to deteriorate. And what happens is I eat something and like a protein from gluten can't get through my digestive tract and lining, so it escapes those tiny junctures that have been formed and created because there's just stress happening in the body. And then that gluten protein can go in the body and kind of make a muck and cause haywire, because your immune system is like, hey, that protein isn't supposed to be in this place in my body. So for example, I would, like gluten can cause headaches, so I would have more headaches. I'd have joint pain. And again, growing up, I didn't have like headaches and joint pain from eating specific foods, but just as my body, I think, had so much stress and wear and tear over time, I do believe I had leaky gut at one point. So I was like, okay, well, how do we heal a leaky gut? So the first point, and this is again through just Googling and research and talking with that health coach and such, but unfortunately, if you continue to eat food that's inflammatory to the body, you'll continue to have an inflammatory stress response. So the first step is cutting out and eliminating those foods that cause that. So that's why elimination diets have been pretty popular in the last, 5 to 10 years, because you need to remove the foods that are actually causing symptoms and making you sick. Some common inflammatory foods would be gluten, dairy, refined sugar, corn, soy, peanuts, nightshades for some people. Some people it can be tree nuts like coconut. Again, if you want help with these freaking ladybugs, man. If you want help with your body specifically, I do muscle testing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of information out there, but it can be information overload. So that's what I do in helping my clients, is kind of customizing and testing your own body specifically, which is what I talk about in my videos and information that I share, because it is all about your body specifically, your experience. But if you want support with that, let me know. So elimination diet is the first part, because if you eat something that's inflammatory to the body, then you eat it, and then your body can, unfortunately, if it's in a reactive mode and state, react to that food for weeks and months after. I think gluten, I read when I was cutting it out, like you can eat it and then those proteins can stay around for like 8 to 10 weeks in the body and cause issues if you're sensitive to it at that point. So you do really need to back away from it. And I understand that's a whole process. Like, I had to cut out gluten, dairy, sugar, and if you crave those foods, it is a very hard cycle to break. I made a video about breaking your sugar habits and addiction cravings not too long ago. So again, I understand that's just one part of the journey, but eliminating it is super important. Then it's adding healing foods back in, and in addition, actual supplements that can heal the leaky gut. So to heal those junctures, again, you have to get rid of the inflammator. You have to get rid of the culprit that's causing the issue, so then the gut lining can actually have a chance to heal. And then supplements that can help with that are L-glutamine. L-glutamine is an amino acid that is abundant in the body that helps, proteins and your cells do their job. Kind of, it's one of the building blocks that's creating proteins in the body. And L-glutamine is good for the gut specifically because it will heal those holes in the gut lining. So L-glutamine is something that I did take. Celery juice is kind of good for everything. I'm redoing celery juice right now for getting clear skin, but that's really going to help the gut heal as well, help with hydrochloric acid levels. Again, it's just kind of good for everything. So I did celery juice at that point, L-glutamine, and then bone broth is something that has gained popularity for a number of reasons, but in this case, bone broth helps collagen in the body rebuild, or it puts collagen back in the body, and having collagen in the gut lining, again, will start to seal and heal those holes that can be in the gut lining because of leaky gut. So again, remember, leaky gut, there's holes in the lining that are, it's a cell thick. They're not big, but we need to kind of seal it all up so then your gut can keep the food in the intestinal tract instead of having it leak all over. So the glutamine will help those cells rebind. Celery juice is just kind of good for overall digestion. And again, collagen kind of soothing the gut lining and again, helping the body just reseal back up. So those would be the top 3 that I would recommend. Other things for digestion I have taken would be slippery elm root, marshmallow root. Overall, turmeric is going to be anti-inflammatory, as well as ginger. Unfortunately, there's a lot of supplements out there that kind of have a bunch of gunk and crap. So I recommend going to a co-op, and you can get powder slippery elm, you can get powder ginger, powder turmeric. You can also obviously have ginger and turmeric in tea or juice it. And then marshmallow root was another herb that I would probably recommend getting at a co-op. But if you do the supplement route, just look, you want kind of the basics. You don't want a bunch of fillers and crap. Like as close to nature as you can get is going to be the most beneficial. So yeah, that's kind of overall like how I started to heal my leaky gut, was getting rid of the bad guys and then adding the good guys back in to help. And at that point too, like, understand what I was experiencing symptom wise was, I already mentioned headaches and joint pain, but I also just had mood issues, like really up and down mood. Like now the last 5 years I've had mood ups and downs, but I know that's from a spiritual kind of perspective and like almost purging, like to really purify. But at that point it was more just the symptoms I had and riding the waves up and down because of the chemical reactions that were happening in my body for having like crappy food and really needing to help my cells kind of overcome a lot of the stress that they were experiencing. And then it's like, what do you eat, right? If you're not eating gluten, dairy, sugar, peanuts, the stuff I mentioned. Again, I would muscle test to understand what your body wants and needs. I can eat rice and not have symptoms from what I can tell. Some people, grains are going to cause physical symptoms. Basically all fruits, again, I don't really react to. There was at one point where I would stay away from oranges because I think they were too acidic, but right now I don't have those symptoms that I did. Some fruits are going to be too sweet for people. Sometimes cherries can be too much, but again, that's not my body. Most of the vegetables I eat, again, I don't experience very much symptoms. I will say, I mean, that's something I want to look into, is like eating for your genetic diet, like your blood type, because you can kind of, the way I see it and think about it, I could probably do a whole video on this too, but like my DNA and my genes are very white European, like very white. But an easy example for that is, so my ancestors that lived in the cold European, climate, in the winter, they did not have like fruits and vegetables year round, right? They probably ate grains and meat and things you could keep over winter. Like we couldn't grow fruits year round. But someone whose ancestors and DNA comes from the equator, right? They had fruit year round. So that is something I want to look into. But again, overall basic kind of balanced nutrition information. Understand what your body feels best eating. Like, I know I feel a little bit better if I do eat a little bit of meat. It's a lot less than what I once used to eat. For sugar right now, I eat fruit and then like coconut sugar. Honey, again, I don't really react to. Agave is too sweet for me, so I don't do that. But in regards to healing your leaky gut, remove inflammatory foods add healing supplements back in, and then eat foods that from you understand and your experience don't add to more physical symptoms. And this takes time to understand how your body even reacts. Like, I remember beginning of this journey, it was like, keep a food journal, so write down every single thing you eat. And when I started to do that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't even knew that I kind of ate mindlessly. Like, I just ate food to eat food, like a snack, right? Like when people have candy out, or little snacks out and about, like, I was becoming more and more aware of those choices I was making. So I do recommend starting, like, I don't do a food journal anymore because I'm so much more mindful of what I do put into my body, but that took time. And that food journal is kind of the first step in that, because it is like, oh my gosh, like, I had all this candy when I went to a doctor's appointment today, or oh my gosh, like, what am I even eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks? Like, really put it down in front of you to see, because again, you're going to start making connections of like, oh my gosh, after I was stressed talking to my parents, I craved chocolate. Oh my gosh, like, after my workouts, I'm really hungry, but is that because I fast or I don't eat until 12? Like, you'll just start to become more and more aware of your choices that you're making, which is the most empowering thing you can do. Because again, this has been my personal experience, and I can only share wisdom and information and knowledge to empower you and help you on your journey. If you want more support, we can, but it's all about you being able to make choices and decisions that match with your lifestyle long term. Because again, for me, it wasn't sustainable to do bone broth for years and years. Like, I did it for a certain amount of time, but right now, like, at one point in that journey, I did like bone beef broth. Like, I made it and it was super gross, and I was like, this is a waste. Like, chicken bone broth tastes a lot better to me, for one. So again, like, there are some people that are going to be super paleo, and I have bone broth every single day all the time still, and I'm like, okay, well, again, that's not where I'm at, but that is the customizable part of this game, if you will. Like, you have to figure out not only what can work for you, but also like in an acute healing phase, but also kind of that long term. Is there anything else? So yeah, because I did that and where I'm at now, again, there was a lot of other pieces in there about the emotional side of my digestion and stomach, but leaky gut wise, I've stayed away from gluten for years now, basically since that, right out of college. But when I have had gluten since then, my body definitely does not react in the same way that it did at that point. So I know that I have really helped my stomach heal and not have those crazy symptoms that I once did. That inflammatory response is a lot less. Because at one point my inflammation was so bad, like, I didn't want to work out. Like I said, I had those headaches and joint pain, and I can work out now and have energy. So it is worth it. It does take effort and time, just like everything does. And if you're like me, you get super impatient. But when it came to being like, yo, I need to be healthy for the rest of my life, like, that was my focus. That was my value. It wasn't something I could just say, like, I'm not gonna do that. I didn't have a life, and I was like, I need to have a life for the rest of my life. But let me know if you want any other support or ideas. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon. Bye.